Hey there, welcome to Tech Tip Tuesday. I know it's been a few weeks since we released a video, mostly because we've been doing house projects, and Tech Tip Tuesday simply hasn't really, well, there's been no time. But today we're talking about something I have very little left of, and that is power. And so we're going to talk about your power supply. That was cheesy, stupid. When we're talking about a power supply, it's important to know that power supply is a pretty generic term, and it can be used for many different things. For example, if you have a phone that needs power from the wall, if you look at the cord, you're going to see a little black box somewhere on that wire. That's a power supply. So here's an example of a laptop power supply. Here's a generic power supply for some type of electrical device. And here's one that we'll see in a desktop. And just for fun, this is what one looks like that goes inside a server. Power supplies are not very glamorous at all. It's not like we can switch one out and suddenly get a performance perk out of our computer. In fact, we barely even notice them unless they quit working. So what are some things you can do to maintain one, especially for your laptop? Well, your laptop is often getting dragged around, so one thing that can happen to that cord is it can get rolled over by a chair, it can be stepped on, tripped over, mangled, tossed in a bag, put in knots, all kinds of things. I would suggest getting a decent piece of Velcro, and when you're not using it, gently wrap up the cable without pulling tightly on any of the wires or the ends, Velcro it up, and put it in the bag. When you are using it, make sure it's not going to get tripped over by someone walking by or rolled over by a chair. This physical protection will go a long way in making sure that the internal components of that thing continue to work for years to come. If it does start to fail, you're going to have to replace it because there's no way to use your computer without it. On the desktop side of things, like one you see behind me, the power supply is a little bit more difficult to maintain because it's built inside of your computer. One thing that does help is giving it a good dusting from time to time. This can be done with some canned air or a vacuum cleaner on reverse if used with care, but I really recommend having someone that knows what they're doing do this, because you will just be blasting a bunch of dirt up into your computer if you're not careful. So what does it look like when a power supply begins to fail? Like I said earlier, it's not very glamorous, and it's not like we can get a serious system upgrade by putting a new power supply in it. So what are some signs of failure? Well, on a laptop, one of the dead giveaways, no pun intended, is your battery will stop charging. Now, your battery might stop charging for other reasons, but one really common reason is that the power adapter is no longer delivering power to the computer and it's running on battery alone. Once the battery dies, that's it. On a desktop, we can get some other kinds of weird behavior. Being that there are many system components drawing power, we might see lockups, the computer might just randomly turn off, or some more frequent ones are the computer will not turn on or not wake up from sleep or standby. You see, we like to have our computers go into power save mode in order to save on electric when we're not using it. Well, your computer has to be able to send a signal to the power supply requesting more power when you tap a key on the keyboard or move the mouse. A failing power supply will often be unresponsive when the signal is sent and won't wake up the computer. One way around this you will usually see is you can hold the power button down for 10 to 15 seconds, wait a moment, and then turn it back on. Sometimes the computer will start right up if the power supply hasn't completely failed, or you'll see some fans try to spin or a light try to turn on and the whole thing dies again. That's usually a sign that the power supply is toast. Now, on the desktop side, power supplies are really not all that expensive and the repair is fairly straightforward. It's usually worth getting the fix done, especially if the computer is newer. On the laptop side, there's a wide variety of adapters available, and I really only have one caution. Don't just jump on eBay and Amazon and buy the cheapest adapter that is compatible with your computer. Unfortunately, companies that sell them this cheap have to cut corners somewhere, and they usually do it in the quality assurance department. So while it might be able to deliver the correct amount of electricity for a while, eventually it's going to have a problem. And if it is by delivering too much power, it could actually short out the entire system. It's really not worth risking a several hundred to $1,000 laptop because you bought a cheap power adapter. Get one that is reputable, and if possible, from your manufacturer. Well, I hope this video has been helpful. Now you know that power supplies are not a very glamorous computer part, but they're absolutely important. And we need to make sure we're buying ones that are of quality because it does affect the rest of our system. If one begins to fail, we know that there are a few different things that can happen, and we know how we can take care of them better. I hope you found this informative and that it's been useful to you. Go enjoy your technology.